Opposite the hospital is St Giles Terrace, dominated by the 12th century Church of St Giles. St Giles Church itself occupies a site immediately within the old wall of the town and on the eastern side. It had to be partly rebuilt in 1616 after the original Norman tower had collapsed during a storm in 1613. This destroyed part of the nave and left much of the church insecure. Initially the church, of cross shape, was constructed around the beginning of the 12th century without aisles, and these together with the lengthening of the church were added later. The fine Norman west door was taken down and reconstructed during the extensive 19th century enlargements of the church. Opposite the church in St Giles Terrace is the old St Giles School, now renovated into church rooms. Built between 1858 and 1861 at the cost of £3,000, the building is a striking example of Victorian Gothic architecture. It was built to accommodate 400 boys, girls and infants. The average daily attendance was 360. After a few minutes' walk we find ourselves in Abington Square and its memorial gardens. Nearby is a statue in memory of Charles Bradlaugh. This was erected in 1894. He was a Member of Parliament and very outspoken and radical in his religious objections. Bradlaugh was first elected to Parliament as a Liberal MP by the people of Northampton in 1880. As the first atheist to sit in the House of Commons, he refused to swear the oath, "So help me God," and instead asked the Speaker of the House to allow him to affirm or give his word. This was refused and he was dismissed from the Commons. He was elected 4 more times and dismissed in a similar way. Finally, in January 1886, the Speaker gave in and Charles Bradlaugh was allowed to take his place in the House of Commons. Thus today, instead of swearing on the Bible in court or Parliament, one can opt to affirm. Returning towards the town centre, we come to the Bantam Cock. This local hostelry, which was rebuilt early this century, was once surrounded by open fields and orchards. It was the last house of the town before the development of the Kettering Road. Continuing down into Abington Street, and on the left is Primark's. The new theatre once stood here. Built during 1911 to 1912, the theatre had many well-known artists appearing, including Gracie Fields in 1921 and 26, and the dancer Pavlova in 1925. Even Winston Churchill addressed a meeting in the theatre on the 25th of May 1922. The last performance took place on the 16th of August 1958, and the building was demolished in 1960. The new theatre was also used for showing films until in 1934 it became a full-time theatre with a capacity of around 2,000. This was the original bill for the new theatre on its opening night. And we can see how entertainment's changed with this, the last bill of the new theatre. The naughty gals, lovely to look at, delightful to know. Since 1975, Primark's have owned the new building. A few yards further down on the left and we come to the public library. Northampton Public Library was established in 1876. Until June 1884, it was housed in the lower assembly rooms of the town hall. Then it was transferred to part of the old county jail in Guildhall Road. A competition to design a new library was open to all local architects and was won by a Herbert Norman. His Palladian-style design was eventually opened in June 1910. The total cost of $15,198 was largely paid for by local benefactor Andrew Carnegie. Crossing the road, into the Notre Dame Mews, we find a plaque which refers to the Notre Dame High School, which was in Abington Street and run by the Sisters of Notre Dame de Namur. There was a beautiful chapel, tennis courts, a playing field and an orchard. The school was demolished in 1975, but the school association has very tastefully given a memorial which is situated near the top of the mews on the left. The small garden of remembrance has the cross of our Lord and several headstones. Returning to Abington Street, a little further along on the left is Fish Street. The old Fish Inn can be seen, and opposite is the City building, which is now part of the DSS. The old entrance archway on the corner shows some interesting fish carvings. Walking down into Dychurch Lane, and on the left we find St Giles Mission School of 1869. Now a food factory, this was one of many schools in the town at this time and would accommodate 200 children, but the average daily attendance was 120. If we return to the junction of Abington Street and Fish Street, it's appropriate that the Cobbler's Last dominates this area of the town. Standing as it does on a busy pedestrian shopping thoroughfare, it's a constant reminder of Northampton's fame and where perhaps the town's original fortune lay. Opposite Dychurch Lane further down are the stag buildings depicting a stag high up on the facade. These buildings were built on the site of the Stag's Head Inn, which used to boast a bar stretching right down to the market square, a distance of about 100 feet. And finally we end up back where we started, at the market square.